Hello everybody, and I'll be reading you today. I'll be reading you, I'll start with the book. This book name is called, the name of this book is called SCORPIA, the 5th book on the Alex Rider series. And I'll be reading you chapter 10. Well, let's start reading it. Hold on, let me get shoot. Chapter 10. How to Kill. The island was only a few miles from Venice, but it had been forgotten for 100 years. Its name was Malagosto, and it was shaped roughly like a crescent moon, just half a mile long. There were 6 buildings on the island, surrounded by wild grasses and poplars, and they all looked condemned. The largest of them was a monastery built around their courtyard with a red brick bell tower. Slanting very slightly next to it, there was a crumbling hospital, and then a row of what looked like apartment blocks with shattered windows and gaping holes in the roof. A few boats went past Malagosto, but they were docked there. It was forbidden. The place had a bad reputation. There had once been a small, thriving community on the city, but that had been long ago, in the Middle Ages. It had been ransacked in 1380, during the war with Genoa, and after that, it had been used for plague victims. Sneeze in Venice, it was said, and you would end up in Malagosto. When the plague died out, it became a quarantine centre, and then in the 18th century, a sanctuary for the insane. Finally, it had been abandoned and left to rot, but there were fishermen who claimed that on a cold winter's night, you could still hear the screams and demented laughter of the lunatics who had been on the island last residents. Malagosto was the perfect base for SCORPIA's training and assessment centre. They had bought the island on a lease from the Italian government in the mid-80s, and they hadn't been there ever since. If anyone asked what was happening there, they were told that it was now a business centre where lawyers, bankers and office managers could come for motivation and bonding sessions. This was, of course, a lie. SCORPIA sent new recruits to the school that they ran on Malagosto. It was here to learn that they learned how to kill. It was here that they learned how to kill. Alex Rider sat at the front of the motor launch, watching as the island drew nearer. It was the same motor launch that had led him to the Windows Palace, and the silver scorpion on the bow glistened in the sun. Now I was sitting opposite him, totally relaxed, dressed in white trousers and blazers. I spent 3 months in training here, he shouted over the noise of the engine. Oh, that was a long time after your dad. Alex nodded but said nothing. He could see the bell tower looming up, rising crookedly over the tops of the trees, with the wind chased through his hair and the spray danced in his eyes. Julia Rothman had left Positano before them. Julia Rothman had left Positano before them that morning, returning to Venice when she was involved in something that required her presence. They had met briefly after breakfast, and this time she had been more serious and businesslike. Alex would spend the next few days on Malagosto, she said. Not for full training, but for an initial assessment that would include a medical examination, psychological testing, and a general overview of his fitness and aptitude. It would also give Alex time to reflect on his decision. Alex's mind was dead. He had made his decision, and as far as he was concerned, nothing else mattered. Only one good thing had come out of his laughed out last night. He hadn't forgotten Tom Harris and his brother. They had heard nothing from since he had broken into Constanto yesterday evening, and there was still the question of all Jerry's equipment left behind on the roof. But Miss Wasserman had promised to deal with that, as Alex had reminded her. Go ahead and call them, she said. Apart from anything else, you won't want them to worry about you and raising the alarm. As for your parachute and all the rest of it, I've already told you. I've sent your friend's brother enough money to recover the coast. 5,000 euros. That should do it, she had smiled. You see, Alex, that's what I mean. I want to look after you. After she had gone, Alex called Tom from his room. Tom was delighted to hear from him. We saw you land, so we knew you hadn't got splattered. Then nothing happened for a while, and then the whole place blew up. Was that you? Not exactly. Where are you? I'm in Positano. I'm okay, but Tom, listen to me. I know, you're not coming back to school. Not for a bit. Is this at my 6th again? Sort of. I'll tell you one day. That was a lie. Alex knew he would never see his friend again. Just tell Jerry that someone's going to pay for all his stuff. They're sending him the cash. And tell him thanks from me. What about Brookland? It would be easier if you say you never saw me. As far as they're concerned, I disappeared in Venice and that was that. Alex, you sound strange. Are you sure you're all right? I'm fine, Tom. Goodbye. He hung up and felt a wave of sadness. It was as if Tom was the last link to the world he had known, and he just severed the connection. The boat pulled in. There was a jetty carefully concealed in an actual fault line in the rocks, so that nobody could be watched arriving or leaving the island. Niall sprang ashore. He had the ease and grace of a ballet dancer. Alex had noticed the same thing once about Yasen Gregorovich. This way, Alex. Alex followed. The two of them walked up a twisting path between the trees. For a moment, the buildings were hidden. Can I tell you something? I said. He flashed Alex's friendly smile. I was delighted you decided to join us. It's great to have you on the winning side. Thank you, but I hope you never change your mind, Alex. I hope you never try to trick us or anything like that. I'm sure you will, but after what happened at the Windows Palace, I'd hate to have to murder you again. Yes, it wasn't much fun the last time, Alex agreed. It would really upset me. Miss Rothman is expecting great things from you. I hope you don't let her down. They had passed through the corpse, and there was the monastery. Its great walls peeling from age and neglect. There was a heavy wooden door with a smaller door set in it, and next to it, the one sign that the building might, after all, have been adapted to modern times. A keypad with a built-in video camera. Niall tapped in a code. There was an electronic buzz, and the small door opened. Welcome back to school, Niall announced. As Alex hesitated, the new term at Brookland would start in a few days' time, and here he was about to enter a school of a very different kind, but it was too late for second thoughts. He was following the path his father had mapped out for him. Niall was waiting. Alex went in. He found himself in an open courtyard with cloisters on 3 sides and the bell tower rising up above the 4th. The ground was a neat rectangle of grass with 2 cypress trees side by side at one end. A tile roof slanted in, covering the cloisters like an old-fashioned tennis court. 5 men dressed in white robes stood around an instructor, an older man dressed in black. As Alex entered, they stepped forward as one lashed out with their fists and shouted that Kaya that Alex knew from karate. Sometimes with a silent kill, it is not possible to shout out, the instructor said. He spoke with a Russian or Eastern European accent. But remember the power of your silent Kaya. Use it to drive your chi into the strike zone. Do not underestimate its power at the moment of the kill. That's Professor Yermalov, now told Alex. He taught me when I was here. You don't want to get on the wrong side of him, Alex. I've seen him finish a fight with a single finger. Fast and safe and about as friendly. They crossed the courtyard and went through an archway into a vast room with a multicoloured mosaic floor, ornate windows, pillars, and intricate wooden angles carved into the walls. This might once have been a place of worship. Now it was used as a refectory and meeting place with long tables, wooden sofas, and a hatch leading into a kitchen beyond. The ceiling was domed and carried the faint remnants of a fresco. There had been angels here too, but they had long ago faded. There was a knock. There was a door on the far side. Now went over to it and knocked. Entres, the voice speaking French was friendly. They went into a tall octagonal room, but books lined lined 5 of the 8 walls. The ceiling, painted blue with silver stars, was at least 20 meters high. There was a ladder on wheels reaching up to the top of shelves. 2 windows looked out onto more woodland, but much of the light was blocked out by leaves and an iron chandelier with about a dozen electric bulbs hung down on a heavy chain. The centre of the room was taken up by a solid-looking desk with 2 antique chairs in front of it, and one behind. This third chair was occupied by a small, plump man in a suit and waistcoat. He was working at a laptop, his stubby fingers typing at great speed. He was peering at the screen through gold-rimmed glasses. He had a neat black beard that tapered to a point under his chin. The rest of his hair was grey. Alex Ryder, please come in. The man looked up from his computer with obvious pleasure. I wouldn't recognize you at once. I knew your father very well, and you look just like him. Apart from a slight French accent, his English was perfect. My name is Over the Arc. I am, you might say, the principal of this establishment. The head teacher, perhaps. I was just looking at your personal details online. Alex sat down on one of the antique chairs. I wouldn't have thought they'd be posted on the internet. He commented. It depends which search engine you use. Dr. Ark gave Alex a sly smile. I know Miss Rothman told you that your father was an instructor here. I worked with him, and he was a good friend to me. But I never dreamt that I would one day meet his son. And it is Niall who brings you here. Niall graduated from here a few years ago. He was a brilliant student number 2 in his class. I glanced at Niall for the first time, saw a flicker of annoyance cross the man's face. You remember what Miss Rothman had said? Something about Niall having a weakness, and he wondered what it was that had prevented him becoming number 1. Are you thirsty after your journey? Dr. Ark asked. Can I get you anything? A syrup de grenadine, perhaps? Ike started. The red fruit juice was his favourite drink when he was in France. Had Dr. Ark got that off the internet too? It was what your father always drank. Dr. Ark explained, reading his thoughts. I'm all right, thank you. Then let me tell you the program. Now we'll introduce you to the other students who are here at Malagosto. There are no more than 15, and at the moment there are only 11. 9 men and 2 women. You'll join in with them, and over the next few days, we will examine your progress. Eventually, if I consider you have the ability to become part of SCORPIA, I will write the report, and your real training will begin. But I have no doubts, Alex. You are very young, only 14, but you are John Ryder's son, and he was the very best. There's something I have to tell you, Alex said. Please, go ahead. Dr. Ark sat back beaming. I want to join the Scorpia. I want to be part of what you do, but you might as well know that I don't think I could kill anybody. I told Miss Rothman, and she didn't believe me. She said I'd only be doing what my dad had done, but I know how I am inside, and I know I'm different to him. I hadn't been sure how Dr. Ark would react, but he seemed completely unconcerned. There are a great many Scorpia activities that do not involve killing, he said. You could be very useful to us. For example, for blackmail, or as a Corey, who would suspect that a 14-year-old on a trip was carrying drugs or plastic explosives. But earlier these days, Alex, you have to trust us. We will discover what you can and can't do, and we will find the work that suits you best. I was 18 when I killed my first man. Niall added. That's only 14 years older than you are now. But Niall, you're always exceptional, Dr. Ark purred. There's a knock at the door, and a moment later, a woman came in. She was slender, delicate, and several inches shorter than Alex. She had dark, intelligent eyes and lips that could have been drawn with an artist's pencil. She stopped and made the traditional greeting of the Thai people, bringing her hands together as if in praying and bowing her head. Swasadi, she said. It is very nice to meet you. She had a very gentle voice, and like the principal, her English was excellent. This is Miss Binag, Dr. Ark said. My name is Ajit, but you can call me Jet. I have come to take you to your room. You can rest this afternoon, and I will see you again at dinner. Dr. Ark stood up. He was very short. His pointed beard only just rose up above the level of the desk. I'm so glad you're here, Alex. Welcome to Malagosto. The woman called Jet led Alex out of the room, back across the main hall and down a corridor with a high-vaulted ceiling and bare plastic walls. What do you do here? Alex asked. Hadid Botany. You couldn't keep the surprise out of his voice. It is a very important part of the syllables, Jet retorted. There are many plants that can be useful to our work. The oleander bush, for example, you can extract a poison similar to digitalis from the leaves, and this will paralyze the nervous system and cause immediate death. The berries are mistletoe, can also be fatal. You must learn how to grow the rosary pea. Just one pea can kill an adult in minutes. Tomorrow you can come to my greenhouse, Alex. Every flower there is another funeral. He spoke in a way I was matter of fact, and I again felt a sense of unease, but he said nothing. They passed the classroom that might once have been a chapel, with more faded frescoes on the walls and no windows, and a teacher with ginger hair and a ruddy, weather-beaten face was standing in front of a whiteboard talking to a half a dozen students. 2 of them were men. There was a complete diagram on the board, and each student had what looked like a cigar box on the desk in front of them. And you can read them the the main circuit through the lid and put it back into the plastic explosive. He was saying, and it's right here, for the lock. And I always put this trembler switch. Jet had paused briefly at the door. This is Miss Ross, she said, whispered. Technical specialty. He's from your country, from Glasgow. You'll meet him tonight. They moved on. Behind them, Alex heard Miss Ross speaking again. Do try and concentrate, please, Miss Craig. We don't want you blowing us all up. They left the main building and walked over to the nearest apartment block that Alex had seen from the outside, but sorry, it was elegant and modern inside. Jet showed Alex to an air-conditioned room on the second floor. It was on 2 levels, with a king-size bed overlooking a large living space set with sofas and a desk. There were French windows with a balcony and sea view. I'll come back for you at 5, Jet told him. We have an appointment with the nurse. Miss Wasserman wants you to have a complete examination. We meet for drinks at 6 and dinner is early at 7. There's a night exercise tonight. The students are diving. Don't worry, you won't be taking part. She bowed a second time and backed out of the room. Alex was left alone. He sat down on one of the sofas, noticing that the room had a fridge, a television, and even a PlayStation, presumably put in for his benefit. What had he got himself into? Had he done the right thing? Dark uncertainties rose up in his mind, and he deliberately forced them back again. Remember the film he had been shown? Those 2 words into the radio transmitter. He closed his eyes. Outside, the waves broke again. The island shore and the students in the white robes went once again through the motions of the silent kill. Just over 700 miles away, the woman who had been so much in Alex's thoughts was examining a photograph. There was a single sheet of paper attached to it, and both were stamped with the words "Top Secret" in red. The woman knew what the photo meant, but there was only one course of action open to her. But for once, and for her, it was really fast. She was reckoned. She couldn't allow emotion to get in her way. That was when mistakes were made, and in her line of work, that could be disgracious. But even so, Miss Jones took off her reading glasses and rubbed her eyes. She had received the photograph and the report a few minutes ago. Since then, she had made 2 calls, hoping against hope that there might be a mistake. But there could be no doubt. The evidence was right there in front of her. She reached out and pressed the button on her phone and spoke. William? Is Mr. Blunt in his office? In an outer office, her personal assistant, William Daly, glanced at his computer screen. He was 23, a Cambridge graduate. He was in a wheelchair. He hasn't left the building yet, Miss Jones said. Miss Jones? Any meetings? Nothing scheduled. Right, I'm going there now. It had to be done. Miss Jones took the photograph and typed sheet and walked down the corridor on the 16th floor of the building that pretended to be an international bank, but which was in fact the headquarters of MI6 Special Operations. Alan Blunt was her immediate superior. She wondered how he would react to the news that Alex Ryder had joined SCORPIA. Blunt's office was at the very end of the corridor, with views overlooking Liverpool Street. Miss Jones entered without knocking. There was no need. William would have rung to say she was coming. Sure enough, Blunt registered no surprise as she came in. Not that his round, strangely featureless face ever showed any emotion. He had too been reading a report, several meters thick. She could see he had made neat notes using a fountain pen and green ink for an instant recognition. Yes? Yes? He asked as she sat down. This just came in from Satint. I thought you should see it. Satint was a satellite intelligence. She passed it across. Miss Jones watched Miss Jones watched Alan Blunt carefully as he read the single page. She had been his deputy for 7 years and had worked with him for another 10 before that. She had never been to his home, she had never met his wife, but she probably knew him better than anyone in the building, and she was worried about him. Quite recently he had made a huge mistake, refusing to believe Alex when it came to that business with the main Quay. As a result, Quay had come within minutes of destroying half the world. Blood had been given a server dressing down by the home secretary. But it wasn't just that he was finding hard to live with. It was the fact that he, the head of special operations, had been bettered by a 14-year-old boy. Miss Jones wondered how much longer he would stay. Now he examined the photograph. He saw some blinking behind a steel frame spectacles. It showed 2 figures, a man and a boy getting out of a boat. A man and a boy getting out of a boat. It had been taken above Madagascar and blown up many times. Both faces were blood. Alan Blunt, Alex Ryder. Blunt asked. There was a dead tone to his voice. The picture was taken by a spy satellite, Miss Jones said. But Smithers ran it through one of his computers and it's definitely him. Who was the man with him? We think it could be a SCORPIA agent called Niall. It's hard to tell. The photograph is black and white, but so is he. I've downloaded his details for you. And we to infer that Ryder has decided to switch sides. I've spoken to his housekeeper, the American girl Jack Sarwhite, and it seems that Alex disappeared 4 days ago from a school trip to Venice. Disappear where? She didn't know. It was very surprising that he hadn't been in touch with her. She's his closest friend. Is it possible that the boy had somehow become involved with Scorpia and has been taken by force? I'd like to believe it, Miss Jones said. It couldn't be avoided any longer. There was always a chance that Yasen Gregorovich managed to speak to Alex before he died. When I met Alex about the Quay business, I knew something was wrong. I think Yasen must have told him about John Ryder. Albert Bridge. Yes, that's very unfortunate. There was a long silence. Miss Jones knew that Blunt would be turning over a dozen possibilities in his mind, considering and eliminating each one in a matter of seconds. She had never met anyone with such an analytical brain. Scorpia had been very active recently, he said. It's true, they have been very quiet. We think they might have been involved in a piece of sabotage at Constanto Enterprises near Amalfi yesterday evening. The biomedical people? Yes, we've only just received a report and we're looking into them. There may be a link. If Scorpia have turned Alex against us, they'll use him against us. I know. Blunt took a last look at the photograph. This isn't Madagascar, he said. That means he isn't their prisoner. They're training him. I think we should stack up your security rating with immediate effect. And yours? I wasn't on Albert Bridge. He laid the photograph down. I want all local agents in Venice placed on immediate alert, and we'd better contact airports and all points of entry into the UK. I want Alex Ryder brought in. Unharmed. The single word was spoken as a challenge. Blunt looked at her with empty eyes. Whatever it takes. Chapter 11. The Bell Tower. So tell me, Alex, what do you see? So Alex was sitting in a leather chair in a plain whitewashed room at the back of the monastery. He was on one side of the face facing a smiling middle-aged man who was sat on the other. The man's name was Dr. Karl Steiner, and although he spoke with a slight German accent, he had come to the island from South Africa. He was a psychiatrist and looked it. And looked it with silver-framed glass, hair, and eyes that were always more inquisitive than friendly. Dr. Steiner was holding a white card with a black shape on it. The shape looked like nothing at all. It was just a series of blobs, but Alex was meant to be able to interpret it. He thought for a moment. This was called a Rorschach test. He had seen it once in a film. He supposed it might be important, but he wasn't sure that he saw anything in particular on the card. Eventually he spoke. I suppose it's a man flying through the sky, he suggested. He's wearing a backpack. That's excellent, very good. Dr. Steiner put the card down and picked up another. How about this one? The shape was easier. It's a football being pumped up. I said, good, thank you. Dr. Steiner laid the second card down, and there was a brief silence inside the office. Outside, I could hear the gunfire. The other students were down on the shooting range, but there was no view of the range outside out of the window. Perhaps the Pisces twist had chosen this room for that reason. So how are you settling in? Dr. Steiner asked. I shrugged. Okay. You have no anxieties, nothing you wish to discuss? No, I'm fine, thank you, Dr. Steiner. Good, that's good. The Pisces twist seemed determined to be positive. I just wondered if the interview was over, but then the man opened the file. I have your medical report here, he said. For a moment, Alex was nervous. He had been physically examined on his first day on the island, stripped down to his underwear. He had been put to a whole series of tests by an Italian nurse who spoke little English. Blood and urine samples had been taken. His blood pressure and pulse measured. His sight, hearing, and reflexes checked. He wondered now if they had found something wrong. But Dr. Steiner was still smiling. You're in very good shape, Alex, he commented. I'm glad you've been looking after yourself. Not too much fast food, no cigarettes. Very sensible. He opened the drawer in his desk and took out a hypodermic syringe and a little bottle. Alex watched he inserted the needle into the bottle and filled it with the syringe. What's that? Alice asked. According to your medical report, you're a little run down. I suppose it's to be expected after all you've been through. I'm sure it's very demanding being here on this island. The nurse had suggested a vitamin booster. That's all this is. He held the needle up to the light and squirted a little of amber-coloured liquid out of the tip. Would you mind rolling up your sleeve? He said. Alex hesitated. I thought you were a twist, he said. I'm perfectly qualified to give you an injection, Dr. Steiner said, raising an accusing finger. You're not going to tell me you're afraid of a little prick. I wouldn't call you that. He rolled up his sleeve. 2 minutes later, he was back outside. He had been missing gun practice because of his medical appointment, and he joined the other students on the firing range. This was on the western side of the island, the side that faced away from Venice. Where SCORPIA was legally permitted to be on Madagascar, so they hadn't wanted to draw attention to themselves with the sound of gunfire, and the woodland provided a natural screen. There was a strip of the island, and there was that was long and flat, with nothing growing apart from wild grasses, and the school had built a cut-out town with offices and shops that were nothing more than fronts, like a film set. I had already been through it twice, using a handgun to shoot at paper targets. Black rings with a red bullseye that popped up in the windows and doors. Gordon Ross, the ginger-haired technical specialists who seemed to have picked up most of his skills in Scotland's tougher jails, was in charge of the shooting range. He nodded as Alex approached. Good afternoon, Mr. Ryder. How was your visit to the shrink? Did he tell you you're mad? If not, I wonder what the hell you're doing here. A number of the students stood around him, unloading and adjusting their weapons. Alex knew all of them by now. There was Claus, a German mercenary who had changed with the Taliban in Afghanistan, Walker, who had spent 5 years with the CIA in Washington before deciding he could earn more working for the other side. One of the two women there had become quite close to Alex, and he wondered if she had especially chosen to look after him. Her name was Amanda, and occupied Gazer Strip. Seeing him, she raised a hand in greeting. She seemingly genuinely pleased to see him, but then they all did. That was the strange thing. He had been expected into the day-to-day life of Malagusto without any problem. That in itself was remarkable. Alex remembered the time MI6 had been sent him for training with the SIS in Wales. He had been an outsider from the day he arrived, unwanted and unwelcomed, a child in an adult world. He was by far the youngest person here too, but that didn't seem to matter. Quite the opposite. He was accepted and even admired by other students. He was John Ryder's son. Everyone knew what I meant. You're just in time to show us what you can do before lunch, Gordon Ross announced. His Scottish accent made almost everything sound like a challenge. You got a high score the day before yesterday in class. In fact, you were second in class in the class. Let's see if you can do better. Let's see if you can do even better today. This time I may have built a little surprise. He handed Alex a gun, a Belgian-made FN semi-automatic pistol. Alex had it in his hand, trying to find the balance between himself and his weapon. Ross had explained that this was the essential to the technique he called instinctive firing. Remember, you have to shoot instantly. You can't stop to take aim. If you do, you're dead. In a real combat situation, you don't have time to mess around. You and the gunner are one, and if you believe that you can hit a target, you will hit the target. That's what the instinctive firing is all about. Now, like I said before, the gunner at his side, watching the mocked-up doors and the windows in front of him, he knew there would be no warning. At any time a target could appear, he would be expected to turn and fire. He waited. He was aware of the other students watching him. Out of the corner of his eye, he could just make out the shape of Gordon Ross. Teacher smiling. Sudden movement. Attacker had been up and immediately Alex saw that the bullseye target was impersonal rings that had been replaced. A photograph had appeared instead. It was a life-sized coloured picture of a young man. I didn't know who it was, but that didn't matter. It was a target. There was no time to hesitate. Alex raised the gun and fired. Later that day, Oliver, Dr. Ark, the principal of Scorpia's training and assessment centre, sat in his office on Malagusto talking to Julia Wassman. Her image filled the screen of the laptop on his desk, just as her own image would be appearing somewhere in the Windows Palace across the water in Venice. None of them would have ever used a commercial instant messaging system. It would have been far too dangerous. Instead, Scorpia had developed its own secure real-time transport protocol, and its servers were kept in a closely guarded vault in Switzerland. They were confident that none of their conversations would be intercepted or monitored. For the same reason, Miss Wattman never came onto the island. She knew it was under surveillance by both the American and British intelligence services, and one day they might be tempted to target the island with a non-nuclear ballistic missile. It was too dangerous. It was only the second occasion they had spoken since Alex had arrived. It was exactly 7 o'clock in the evening. Outside, the sun had begun to set. "How is he progressing?" Miss Rothman asked. Her face on the screen looked cold and a little colourless. Dr. Ark considered. He ran a thumb and a single finger down the side of his chin, stroking his bit. "The boy is certainly exceptional," he murmured. "Of course, his Uncle Iron Ryder trained him all his life, almost from the moment he could walk. I have to say he did a good job. And he is very intelligent, quick-witted. Everyone here generally likes him. Fortunately, though, I have my doubts about his usefulness to us." "Very sorry to hear that, Professor Dr. Ark." "Please explain." "I'll give you 2 examples, Miss Rothman. Today, Alex returned to the shooting range. We've been putting through him a course of instinctive firing, It's something you've never done before, and I have to say, it takes many of our students several weeks to master the art, and after just a few hours on the range, Alex already achieved impressive results. At the end of the second day, he scored 72%. Don't see anything wrong with that. Dr. Arthur shifted to a seat in his formal suit, and his tie shrunk to fit Miss Rothman's computer screen. He looked rather like a veteristic dummy. Today we switched the targets, he explained. Instead of black and red rings, Alex was asked to fire at photographs of men and women. He was supposed to aim at the vital areas, the heart between the eyes. How did he do? That's the point. His score dropped to 46%. He missed several targets altogether. Dr. Ark took off his glasses and polished them with the cloth. I also have the result of his Worcester psychological test. He was asked to identify certain shapes. I do know what a Roscoe shape test is, Professor. Of course, forgive me. Well, there was one shape that every student who has ever come here has identified as a man lying in a pool of blood, but not Alex. He said he thought it was a man flying through the air with a backpack. Another shape with which is invariably seen as a gun pointing at someone's head. He believed to be someone pumping up a football at our very first meeting. Alex told me that he couldn't kill for us, and I have to say, psychologically speaking, he seems to lack what might be called the killer instinct. There was a long pause. The image on the computer screen flickered. Very disappointing, Dr. Ark went on. Having met Alex, I must say that a teenager as sane would be extremely useful to us. Possibilities are almost limitless. I think we should make it a high priority to find one of our own. I doubt there are many teenagers quite as experienced as Alex. That was what I was beginning to say. But even so, there was another pause. Miss Rothman came to a decision. Did Alex see Dr. Steiner? She asked. Yes, everything was done exactly as you instructed. Good. She nodded. You could say that Alex wanted to kill for us, but you could still be provided wrong. It's just a question of giving him the right target. And this time I'm not talking about paper. I want to send him off on an assignment. As you know, Invisible Sword is about to enter his final critical place, introducing his identity mix. Right now, provided as an interesting distraction at the very least, and if he did succeed, which I believe he might, he could be very useful indeed, and in all, the timing couldn't be better. Judy Rothman leaned forward so that her eyes almost hit the screen. This is what I want you to do. There were 247 steps to the top of the bell tower. Alex knew because he had counted every one of them. The bottom of the tower was empty, a single chamber with bare brick walls, and a smell of damp. It had clearly been abandoned years ago. The bells themselves either had been stolen or fallen down and been lost. The stairs were made of stone and twisted round, following the edges of this tower, and the small windows allowed just enough light to see. There was a door at the top. I just wondered if it would be locked. The tower was usually a cage. Occasionally during camouflage exercises, the students had to creep from one side of the island to the other. It was a useful lookout post, but he hadn't reached up here for himself. The door was open. It led to a square platform, about 10 meters wide. About 10 meters wide. Out in the open air, once there might have been a balustrade enclosing platform and making it safe, but at some point it had been removed, and now the stone floor simply ended. But it took three more paces. He would step into nothing. He would fall to his death. Cautiously, Alice walked to the edge and glanced down. He was right above the monastery courtyard. He could see the makiwara, which had been set up earlier in the afternoon. This is a heavy pole with a thick leather pad wrapped around it at head height. It was used to practice kickboxing and karate strikes. There was nobody in sight. Lessons for the day had ended and the other students were resting before dinner. He looked across the woodland that surrounded the monastery, already dark and impenetrable. The sun was sinking into the sea, spinning the last of its light over the black water. In the distance he could see the twinkling lights of Venice. What was happening there right now? Tourists would be leaving their hotels, searching out the restaurants and bars. There might be concerts in some of the churches. The gondoliers would be typing up their boats. Winter might be a long way off, but it was already too cold for most people to set out on an evening cruise. Alex still found it hard to believe that this island, with all its secrets, could exist so close to one of the world's most popular holiday destination. Two worlds side by side, but one of them was blind, hardly unaware of the existence of the other. He stood there unmoving, feeling the breeze rippling through his hair. He was wearing only a long-sleeved shirt and jeans, and he was conscious of the evening chill, but somehow it was distant. It was as if he had become part of the tower, a statue or a gargoyle. He was on Malagasto because he had nowhere else to go. He no longer had any choice. He thought back over the last couple of weeks. How long had he been on the island? He had no idea. In many ways, it was just like being at school. Being at school, there were teachers and classrooms and separate lessons, and one day more or less blurred into the next. Only the subjects here were nothing like the ones he had studied in Brookland. Versailles history, also taught by Gordon Ross, but his version of history had nothing to do with kings and queens, battles and treaties. Ross specialized in the history of weapons. So this is the double-edged commando knife, developed in the Second World War by Fairbairn and Sykes. One was a silent killing specialist, the other a crack shot with the rifle. Isn't it a beauty? You see that 7.5-inch blade with cross piece and a ribbed center on both sides. It's designed to fit in exactly your palm. You may find it a little heavy, Alex, as your hand isn't fully developed. But this is still the greatest murder weapon ever invented. Guns are noisy. Guns can jam. But the commando knife is a true friend. It will do its job instantly, and it will never let you down. And then there were practical lessons with Professor Yumalov. As Mal had said, he was the least friendly member of the staff at Malagasto. A scowling, silent man in his 50s who had a little time for anyone, but Alex soon found out why. Yumalov was from Chennai. He had lost his entire family in the war with Russia. Today I'm going to show you how to make yourself invisible, he said. Alex couldn't resist a faint smile. Yumalov saw it. You think I am making a joke with you, Mr. Ryder? You think I am talking about children's books? A cloak of invisibility, perhaps? You are wrong. I'm teaching you the skills of the ninjas, the greatest spies who had ever lived. The 9 Assassins of feudal Japan were reputed to have the ability to vanish into thin air. In fact, they used the 5 elements of escape and concealment. The Gonton Po, not magics but science. They might hide underwater, breathing through the tube. They might bury themselves a few centimeters below the surface of the earth, wearing protective clothing. They might hide inside a fire to vanish into thin air. They carried a rope or even a hidden ladder, and there were other possibilities. They developed the art of sight, removers of blinders, blind your enemy with smoke or chemicals, and you become invisible. That is what I show you now. And this afternoon, Miss Benag will be demonstrating how to make a blinding power from hot peppers. There had been other exercises too, how to assemble and dismantle an automatic pistol while blindfolded. I said dropped all the pieces, much to the amusement of the other students. How to use fear, how to use surprise, how to target aggression. There were textbooks, including a manual of the most vulnerable parts of the human body, written by Dr. Tree, as well as blackboards and even written exams. They sat in classrooms with ordinary desks. There was just one difference. This was a school for assassination. Then there had been the demonstration. It was something Alex would never forget. They would never forget. Alex would never forget. One afternoon, a student had assembled in the main courtyard where Dr. Ark was standing. Dr. Ark was standing with a aisle. He was dressed in white judo robes with a black belt around his waist. It was odd how often the two colours seemed to surround him, as if perpetually mocking his disease. Now was one of our best students, Dr. Ark explained. Since his time here, he has risen up the ranks of SCORPIA with successful assignments in Washington, London, Bangkok, Sydney, and all over the world. In fact, he was kindly agreed to show you a few of his techniques. I'm sure you'll all learn something from him. He bowed. Thank you, Niall. In the next 30 minutes, Alex saw a display of strength, agility, and fitness he would never forget. Niall smashed bricks and planks with his elbow, fists, and bare feet. 3 students with long wooden staff closed in on him unharmed. He beat them all, weaving in and out, moving so fast that at times his hands was no more than a blur. Then he proceeded to demonstrate a variety of ninja weapons: knives, swords, spears, and chains. I watched him throw a dozen Hirashuriken at a wooden target. These were deadly, star-shaped projectiles that spun through the air, each point razor sharp, one after another. They thudded into the wood, hitting the inner circle. Niall never missed, and this was a man with some sort of secret weakness. I can see, and he understood now how he had been defeated so easily. Yeah, the Windows pilots against a man like Niall, he wouldn't stand a chance. And they were on the same side. I can remind himself of that now as he stood at the top of the bell tower, watching the night draw in and darkness take hold. He had made his choice. He was part of SCORPIA now, like his father. Had he made the right decision at this time? It all seemed so very simple. Yes, sanguine. Oh, I really had told the truth. But this Rothman had shown it to him on the film, but he still wasn't sure that there was a voice whispering to him in the evening breeze that this was all a terrible mistake, that he shouldn't be here. It was too late to get away. Where would he go? How would he return to English, knowing what he would do? What he did? Albert Bridge. He couldn't erase the images from his mind. The 3 SCORPIA agents waiting. They started talking into the radio, transmitting the betrayal. John Ryan, a picture forward and lying still. Alex felt hatred welling up inside him. It was stronger than anything he had ever experienced in his life. He wondered if it would be possible to live an ordinary life again one day. There seemed to be nowhere for him to go. Maybe it would be better for everyone if he just took one more step. He was already standing on the very edge. Why couldn't he just let the night take him? Alex? He hadn't heard anyone approach. He looked around and saw Niall standing in the doorway, one hand resting against the frame. I've been looking for you, Alex. What are you doing? I was just thinking. Professor Yermolov said he saw you come up here. You shouldn't really be here. Alex expected Dan to come forward, but he stayed where he was. I just wanted to be alone, I said. Alex explained. I think you should come down. You could fall. Alex hesitated. Then he nodded. All right. He followed Niall back down the twisting staircase, and at last they emerged at ground level. Professor Dr. Ark wants to see you, Niall said. To fail me? What gave you that idea? You've done extremely well. Everyone is pleased with you. You've been here less than a fortnight, but you've already made great progress. They walked back together. A couple of students paused past them and murmured a greeting. Before Alex had seen them fight a ferocious duel with fencing swords. They were deadly killers. They were his friends. He shook his head and followed Niall into the monastery. I'm through to Dr. Ark's study. As usual, the principal was sitting behind his desk. He was looking as neat as ever, his beard perfectly trimmed. Do please sit down, Alex," he said. He tapped on his keyboard glass at the screen through his gold-rimmed spectacles. "I have some of your results here," he went on. "You'll be pleased to know that all the teachers speak very highly of you," he found. "You do have one small problem, however. Your psychological profile." Alex said nothing. "The business of killing," Dr. Ark said. "I heard what you said when you first came to my office, and I told you there are many other things you could do for Scorpia. But here's the problem, my dear boy, you're afraid of killing. So you're afraid of Scorpia. You're not quite one of us, and I fear you never will be. That is not satisfactory. Are you asking me to leave?" "No, not at all. I'm asking you only to trust us a little more. I'm searching for a way to make you feel that you belong with us completely, and I think I have the answer." Dr. Ark shut down his computer and walked around from behind the desk. He was dressed in another suit. He wore a different suit every day. This one was brown, the herringbone pattern. "You have to learn how to kill. You have to learn to kill," he said suddenly. "You have to do it without any hesitation, because when you've done it only once, you'll see that actually it wasn't such a big deal. It's the same as jumping into a swimming pool. As easy as that, but you have to cross the psychological barrier, Alex. If you want to become part of us," he raised your hands. "I know you're very young. I know this isn't easy, but I want to help you. I want to make it less painful for you, and I think I can. I'm going to send you to England tomorrow. The same evening you'll carry out your first mission with Scorpia. If you succeed, there'll be no going back. You'll know that you are truly one of us, and we'll know that we can trust you. But here's the good news." Dr. Ark smiled, showing teeth that didn't look quite real. "We have chosen the person in the world who we think you'll agree most deserves to die. It is someone you have reason to aspire, and we hope that your hatred and your anger will drive you on, removing any last doubts you may have. Miss Jones, the deputy head of MI6 Special Operations, she was the one responsible for the death of your father. We know where she lives. We will help you get to her. She's the one we want you to kill." And everybody, I'll be ending me reading you Alex Book. So bye-bye everyone, and thank you for listening to this.